wind up with a big transition, and you have to have a lot of partners to help, with investors and partners, with bankers and lenders, other commercial investors, and you have to have a whole network. The most important one that you need to find is a mentor, somebody that's done it before. You may wind up you try not to be a nuisance to him, but you certain, because he's busy with what he's doing.
Right.
But if you find a mentor to get you into the concerns that are in there and finding resources to get things done, that's an important part.
Thanks for joining us on another REI-NWA podcast. This is podcast number 15, and I'm your host, Coley Bailey. I'm a team leader and executive broker at the Lone Rock team at Fathom Realty. And today, my guest is Rodger Lecy. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How you doing, Coley? Good to see you.
Doing well. Glad to have you in the studio, and looking forward to the conversation. So we're going to be talking about commercial real estate and how people can get started in that. But first, let's rewind the clocks a little bit and tell everybody how you got started, where you're from, a little bit about your story.
Okay, I'm an Army brat, and was on active duty for a number of years, about 7 years, and in the reserves for about 8 years, and settled in Little Rock, and through various incarnations of my life and service life, was a house painter at one time. Started a computer hardware and software store in Little Rock, and ultimately ended up in Southwestern Bell Yellow Pages, and I sold telephone directory advertising in the state of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri, and helped them transition into internet sales with internet yellow pages and selling SEI, search engine optimization, SEO, websites and stuff, and trying to train people that have been in the yellow page paper business for 20 years. Trying to get them to sell internet was like pulling hen's teeth, finding hen's teeth and then trying to sell them. But it was a matter of managing that, and then went back into sales. For 21 years I worked for the company, and I transferred out of Little Rock into Northwest Arkansas from management there, and they gave me a choice that I could go work in Jonesboro, Little Rock, or Northwest Arkansas, and I chose Northwest Arkansas. It's how I got up here. That was like about 2002. Okay. Stayed with the company until I retired in 2009. And one of my customers was Carter Clark and Brandon Long with Clark Long Real Estate. Yep. Had their account in Fayetteville for about 5 years. And it was boom time, like in 2006, 2007. And it was just manipulated their yellow page advertising into insurance when they got an insurance guy, title stuff, and just all kinds of stuff that they got into, and then they bought the Weichert the Weichert brand franchise, and there was already one other franchise for the Weichert at that time, and that was in Springdale, and they bought the rights for Bentonville and Fayetteville, and so they talked me into. I told them in 2008 that I was probably going to retire, and this is trying to make this story shorter. But they looked at me and said, "Well, with all of the people that and with the commercials people that you called on, yep, you make a great operator." So I got my license in August of 2008. Had 5 contracts, not 5 listings or 5 customers. I had 5 contracts before I retired in 2009, and I thought I was really something at that point. Yeah. Well, we all know what happened in 2009. Yeah. Every one of those contracts went south because the owners were trying to sell the business before they got foreclosed on. The banks were foreclosing on everything, and so it just you have to figure you've made a commitment, Rodger.
Yep.
What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
And so it basically went into 2009, started trying to figure out how I was going to make a living in real estate with all of that. And
so did you jump in? Let me just clarify for the audience and everything. So you jumped in as a commercial agent.
yes.
So you started in commercial before residential, which is
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And there was nothing going on in commercial
Right.
in 2000,
Yeah.
2009 to 2011.
Yeah.
Banks were just trying to heal their bottom line. And so
Did you also have to get separately licensed as a business broker at that time? Or?
No.
No? Okay. Just the real estate.
Just
the
real
side.
estate. Just
Okay.
real estate. It kind of boiled down to really, okay, so what do I need to learn now? After getting through the real estate school, you just know enough to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I started calling on customers, finding customers that were going to buy. And you always start as a buyer's agent, and because it's an easy pickings at that point. And I started working and worked with a couple of folks that saw 25 houses that they did not want to buy.
Yeah.
And I got the attention of Bank of America, who said, "We like the way that you handle your clients." So they gave me the opportunity to become an REO, real estate owned by the bank,
Okay.
a listing agent, and I got really under fire with asset managers from New York to Los Angeles and Phoenix, who demanded to know why I put a broker's price opinion down with the wrong adjustments on stuff. So I got to learn how to value properties in that, and that's lasted with me with some of the. I even use those tools now that I developed back then, and learning how to help value properties and that. And through the years, Brandon and Carter with Clark Long Real Estate became Weichert Clark Long, and shortly after that, Gary Griffin decided that he wanted a national brand with his very widespread and very well thought of Griffin Company Realtors. And so they merged with Gary, and it became Weichert Griffin Real Estate, and we still had the Griffin Commercial. So I started working with some of the commercial guys over there, and so I have a business then, and still have a pretty active residential that's developed into a niche market, and a commercial side of the business. I do a significant amount of that. Also, so I'm staying in the commercial, and limited my residential stuff primarily to the inheritance niche.
Okay.
That uses a lot of what I learned as a foreclosure agent.
Yeah.
Is that too much of a volume?
No, that's great. That's great. It's a long, illustrious career, and you've done a lot of things. So there's a lot to that story. So that's great. And I think there's always a lot that people can learn from hearing other people's journey through.
It's been a journey for sure, and so here I am in the twilight of my career of living at 73 years old. Just had that birthday in August, and so I'm now just kind of settling in. What do I want to do?
Yeah.
What do I want to do? How do I want to help people? And one of them is just helping young investors get into that and provide them with a perspective help them develop the correct perspective on how to move forward from there.
Fantastic. And you're going to have a talk coming up. And let me just go ahead and pitch that here to the audience. We're going to have a Builder Circle on January 2nd. That's going to be in Rogers at the Golden Corral. It'll start at 5:30. And we're going to be talking about getting started in commercial.
That's right.
Yep. And so we will get into more of this conversation right after this word from our sponsor. Are you struggling with real estate code compliance? Let Ordinal, your AI navigator, simplify it for you. Receive clear answers to your nuanced compliance questions in seconds with citations included. Currently, the Ordinal beta version specializes in the Northwest Arkansas cities of Bentonville, Fayetteville, Springdale, and Rogers. Join the beta version now and get your first month free using the promo code REI. After that, it's just $12 a month. Visit breakground.ai/ordinal or click the link in the description below. Start incorporating AI into your real estate workflows today with Ordinal. All right, so before we even got started today, you and I had a pretty good conversation about commercial and the difference. It's kind of a gut level check that you need to think about going into commercial, just because the size of these transactions is so much bigger. Speak on that just a little bit.
Guys that are doing home flips and the REI organization want to flirt with and start trying to figure out how to get into a commercial setting when lots are hard to find for the flips. Even the houses are coming that are on the market. The market's drying up, and it's just basically, so commercial is really a big bite difference, and it's a big boy thing because the dollars are much bigger.
Right.
The risk is much bigger. The regulations are much bigger because if you're doing commercial stuff, you've got the public that comes into those things, and that means public safety is much more to the front of what we're doing. And that goes into code enforcement and so on and so forth. And it also gets into the dollar investment. It gets into that, not just the purchase of a property to build on, but you've got all of the varying regulations and codes to meet there. But after it's finished, you've got public walking through. And public access.
And you've got to work hand in hand with the cities to make sure. I mean, there's often a city component involvement, city planning, and all of these things that you don't always have to deal with if you're strictly doing residential. Yeah.
So much more involved. Yeah. Yes, I hadn't even got into that yet, but you're absolutely right. Code enforcement comes to the front. And zoning on what you do, and there's a lot of different ways that you can get started in commercial, but you really need to start really looking at, is it something that you really want to go? What's the positives and what are the drawbacks in going into commercial? If we start looking at I've mentioned a couple of the drawbacks. Is the dollar commitment is a big commitment. That's doable if you've got a good credit score, you've got a good record, and more importantly, you have a great banker.
Right.
Because the banker is going to be the one that you have to sell yourself to, or that you're not going to go bankrupt.
Right.
And you're going to finish a project.
Yeah.
And once you get into one or two banks that you have that are partnering or funding a commercial project with you, that becomes a lot easier to go, because that's how you get over that hump. But you have to prove yourself to some very, very cautious bankers. Yeah. Smaller the bank, the better.
Yeah.
The bigger banks are going to be very selective in who they do, who they finance and who they lend money to. The smaller banks will take a chance on a smaller project at the start with, and then if you find something bigger, then you wind up. I've seen guys go in and start talking about putting in an RV park in that. Well, that seems like a pretty easy build, but there's a lot of regulatory issues going with that, because you've got human waste to deal with, you got utilities to go with, you've got common facilities that need to be placed in there. There's a lot of different. Just depends on the projects that you go, and you have to get the bank to help you out with getting the financing, because it's not going to come to you immediately. But that's the other side of that. That's positive, is that the income is a little bit higher than if you've got 4 or 5 doors that you're renting. You've got a different scale that you can do. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting into 4 or 5 doors. It's a very good thing, but you also have to look at, and there's one of the reasons that I asked as a guest that'll be showing up on the 2nd is Bob Downham. Bob is a very successful real estate investor. He had his own Downham Real Estate, and he was that Weichert agent, Weichert broker that in Springdale that Carter and Brandon couldn't get, and he eventually built his own brand, built his own agency with agents, trained them both residential and commercial. He worked with, and this is a real plus for what's happening with him there. He was with Harps Foods for about 27 years and started out in marketing and helped place the location for many of the Harps food stores in the regions where he's at, and helped with setting up the financing and making sure that the project went forward. And that's why I asked Bob to come in. And he also, while he was after he graduated, retired from Harps. Of course you do. He retired from Harps and started his real estate business, and while he was in the real estate business, he bought a strip shopping center in Springdale that he had his office in, which really worked out well for him, because he had a record of commercial work involved, and managed to get a really, I guess it was probably about a 12-unit strip mall in Springdale. And his goal for that was, and he'll find out on the 2nd when you talk to him, he was building that as his retirement, in addition to what he was getting from Harps. And so he sold that, merged with the Griffin Company, and is now one of our leaders in both commercial and residential help. So Bob is really doing that. And the other guest that I'm going to have there is Kyle Patillo. Kyle has had a good career with Lindsay, I believe it was, as a real estate agent, and did a lot of commercial. Kyle has a history of he grew up in banking. His dad and his family was down in Stuttgart, and they were instrumental in helping the Farmers and Merchants Bank in Stuttgart. And he moved up here and started out in real estate, and Farmers and Merchants bought Bank of Fayetteville. And so he is now the president of the Bentonville Farmers and Merchants Bank in Bentonville. And so his commercial background is extensive. With everything that he's done, both from the sales standpoint, the development standpoint, and that. So I'm having 2 really top drawer type of guys come in on the 2nd that'll provide a perspective on anything that I bring up.
So good handful of folks that you should come out and meet, definitely. So let's talk about just a handful of the segments of commercial, just kind of a beginner's level overview of what are some of the segments that you could work different project types within commercial.
I've seen several people going in and purchasing an abandoned building, and it needs a ton of work. Generally speaking, if you buy right, you're going to have a great and it's in a great location, then you're going to have a great opportunity to put somebody in it. All of the segments in commercial are going to be on most likely a lease, and it's going to be a long-term lease, 3 to 5 years with the escalations and so on and so forth. So as you look at across the board, whether it's warehouses, where there's strip shopping centers, whether it's an apartment complex or anything along those lines, rental income is going to be magnified as the main thing, and that comes with putting the right tenant in there. So if you have experience in rentals, whether it's residential, you learn real quickly picking the right tenant is the key to having a success in the rental business. There's a lot of different ways that you can go into sector of commercial building, commercial real estate, but you wind up with a big transition, and you have to have a lot of partners to help. Right. Because you've really got to find the right team. And you've got to find the right team with investors and partners, with bankers and lenders, other commercial investors, and I think that service providers, vendors that you have, and you have to have a whole network. The most important one that you need to find is a mentor. Somebody that's done it before. You may wind up you try not to be a nuisance to him, but you certain, because he's busy with what he's doing. Right. But if you find a mentor to get you into the concerns that are in there and finding resources to get things done, that's an important part. Evaluations of whether it's going to be valuable to go into something. There's a lot of different ways of looking at that. Even if you go into apartments, I've talked to people that are looking for apartment complexes to purchase, and you can't second guess them, because they have their own valuation method, something that resembles a cap rate that they use. Right. And you can take the textbook cap rate and use that as a starting point in discussion. But after about 3 or 4 discussions with someone who's looking for an apartment complex, they have their own formulations that they
because they use. Calculate that net number differently.
Exactly. It has and it either has to do with what they have to have in order to satisfy their investors and their banks, or the just basically what their financial goals are going to be at. And that's the other part of commercial is, what are your financial goals? That's probably real early. You got to figure out what you're going to do. If you're not happy with what you're doing now and you think that commercial is going to solve your financial goals, there's a lot more that needs to be happening before you get to that point.
All right, so let's talk a little bit just on a very elementary level with what rent rates look like in commercial, because it's a little different than, if people are used to a rent rate on, a single family home, they say, hey, this is going to be $1,500 a month, and that's how it's advertised. Commercial is advertised a little bit differently. So it's advertised based on a dollar amount that then gets multiplied by the square footage, and that is a yearly amount.
Yes. For example, if you have a 1,200 square foot rentable commercial space, and you advertise it at $10 a square foot, that's $12,000 a year. Okay. That's a yearly amount that you come up with. Then you divide that by 12 months.
So it's $10 a square foot.
It's $12,000 a year.
$12,000 a year on that 1,200 square foot. Then you're going to divide that by 12 months.
Right.
And then also this is going to be on a longer lease period, so a 3-year to a 5-year lease.
Yes, and I've worked a couple of deals where there needed to be improvement to the property. It's added to the overall investment. The way that it's calculated back to a monthly, you don't pay for that. The renter pays for the improvement,
right? Okay.
And it's added into their rent. So if you have it listed at $10 a square foot, it now might go up to $15 a square foot because you're amortizing, you're paying off the improvements that are needed to that particular property.
Okay.
Did I say that clearly?
Yeah, so if they need to retrofit it for their storefront or their...
That's right.
Yeah, right.
We will pay for the refrigerator that goes in there. We want a big walk-in refrigerator, but we want you to make the square footage.
Yeah.
We want to make the footing there. The tenant pays for the refrigerator, but if you pay for the refrigerator to go in, all of a sudden you've taken a building that becomes a restaurant of that sort. But you get that into flower shops and stuff like that, refrigeration issues and electrical stuff. I've seen some commercial properties that wouldn't meet code for electrical. I mean, we're talking wires hanging and stuff like that. And the landlord just says, if you want it done, then you do it. Or if you want me to do it, I'm adding it to your rent.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. All right, so as you can see, there's a lot to go into when we're talking about commercial real estate, several different sectors, and a lot of different relationships you need to make. And so definitely make sure that you're coming out to the Builder Circle on January 2nd, and that's going to be 2024. It's going to be at 5:30. Doors will open. We'll start talking about it at 6. And this is going to be at the Golden Corral in Rogers. We hope to see you there. So once again, we're going to have Rodger, we're going to have Bob Downham, and we're going to have Kyle Patillo. And Rodger, thanks for coming out.
Really appreciate you inviting me. God bless you, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks. We'll catch you on the next one.